RevOpsAF, the only podcast for people who are RevOpsAF and want to learn all about things that are RevOpsAF.
Our goal is to give the revenue operations community, that includes marketing, sales, and CS, for any of you not paying attention, the skills needed to accelerate their careers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOps AF, the podcast where we talk to people who are RevOps AF about things that are RevOps AF. Today, I'm sitting down with Dan Kalish, who is a director of search operations at JM Search, a national executive search firm. We're going to be talking about the uniqueness that comes with leading search operations at an executive search firm, because it is very different than what you might see in, say, a traditional software or technology company. And we are going to also dive into alignment and specifically some tips, tricks, strategies that Dan deploys to help drive alignment within JM Search across all of the different stakeholders that he has. Dan, thank you very much for being on the show, my friend. Why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and JM Search in order to kind of set the stage as we get started here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt, for having me. I'm really looking forward to chatting. So my career's kind of cut into two pieces. Started working at Vanguard, large financial firm, kind of fresh out of college. Had the opportunity to go through some really robust leadership, process management, change management training there. Led what Vanguard called a back office operations team, so processing department, largely producing. The product was changes in a client's account. In my final role at Vanguard, I was leading a team of financial advisors, again, with a big focus around standardizing the process. How do we get folks talking the same language to our clients, following similar sales motions? That kind of translated into my pivot in career. Left finance, came over to executive search, working at JM. It's been a really, really fun career pivot. We are a 40-year-old retained executive search firm focused in private equity. Over those 40 years, really, really rapid growth in the last 10. So we were probably 20 to 50 employees for most of those 40 years. We've scaled up to 220 search consultants and research specialists and operations professionals really, really rapidly in the last 10 or so years. So it's been fun to kind of figure out how do we apply kind of professional operations and standard procedures to a company that has existed for so long, but scaled like a hyperscale company might. So it's been a really fun challenge. My role today, primarily focused in what we do, how we deliver search to our clients, how do we find the best talent, how do we measure that we're finding the best talent, what's critical to our clients, is it speed to close an engagement, is it quality of candidates, is it how long they stay in the seat, how do we use that data and that excellent search delivery to then win additional business and continue to drive the flywheel of deliver excellent search and be given more search opportunities.
Yeah. So many questions running through my head, but I guess let's start with a lot of people in revenue operations, at least a lot of folks in the RevOps co-op community, for example. We have 16,000 members from all over the globe. A majority of people work in software or technology. And so a lot of times that's the background that people have, or maybe the stage that they have. If you think about software or technology, revenue model is typically something we're all familiar with. You build a software product, drive revenue through subscription-based model, maybe usage-based pricing. You talk about things in terms of annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue. A lot of those things are not applicable or do not have overlap into the search environment. So let's first, to just set the stage, talk about the revenue model. So as an executive search firm, what is the revenue model? Let's start there. How do you drive revenue for your business? Then we can get into all the operational efficiency stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So completely different than your typical SaaS software product. We operate on retainer contracts. We have some repeat business, but largely the model is a firm has a talent need, whether it's a CEO, a new CFO, anything in the C-suite. They don't have the resources, or maybe they've exhausted their resources to go to market. They reach out to us, or we're in contact with them through our network, and they ask, can we go ahead and place that client or candidate, find that candidate for the client. We are paid typically based on the ending salary of the candidate that we place. So It's anywhere in the range of 30 to 33% of that salary. It's a one-time limited engagement contract for 90% of our work. At the end of that, there's no guarantee of repeat business. So one of the unique factors of what we do is it's really critical that through that search engagement, we are constantly in front of our client, making sure they know exactly what we're doing in the market, bringing them top tier candidates. Something you'll often hear in the search world is search is bought, not sold. We do our best sales motion by doing really exceptional talent search and talent acquisition for our clients. That then brings in additional contracts, additional retainers. We do have repeat business. We have clients who give us 2, 3, 4, 5 searches a year, but we're also out of the market seeking out new logos very, very constantly.
Yeah, that model presents unique challenges and ways that you as an operator need to think about process efficiency and effectiveness. We just talked about the software side of the business, the subscription-based revenue model. It's easy to see how that, you land the deal, right? You keep your folks around. You think about things like expansion. Even in a usage-based pricing environment, one could argue the same. You deploy your product, people start using it. The idea is they're going to continue to use it. You're going to continue to make money, right? You place a candidate and your job is you get paid, right? If that candidate is successful, sticks around, is there 5 years, 10 years, right? The long tail there is not necessarily tied directly to the revenue, but your brand and the quality of the work that you do certainly is. So talk a little bit about that revenue model you have. What's the uniqueness about maybe JM and the ways that you need to think about driving effectiveness and efficiency that may not be applicable in a standard software or SaaS business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few things that are unique about how JM operates. I think number one, about 80% of our work, we are working with private equity firms. While it's repeat or new companies that we're placing executives at, a lot of the end client that we're working with is a lot of the same people. It's a small world of talent partners that work at private equity firms. It's a very tight-knit community where your network is really paramount. The next unique piece about what we're working with is a lot of retained executive search firms, your larger Shrek firms, what we call them in the industry, will sell an engagement through a partner. That partner might sell 20, 30 to 50 and 60 engagements per year. And then they'll largely farm that work out to lower level employees to do their engagement. What's really unique about JM Search from an operations lens, our partners, our senior level folks in the firm, are often leading these search engagements directly themselves. So they're out there in the market recruiting candidates, working with the client. They'll have a team behind them, but in most of our search world, our partners are at the forefront leading the engagement. Where that comes into the operations world is my stakeholders internally are unbelievably busy. They're moving a mile a minute. They're putting in 50, 60, 70 hours a week to deliver these really strong engagements. It's tough to find time to align with them around, hey, what KPIs are really top of mind for you right now? What's your pipeline look like? Can you document this appropriately in XYZ system? It's really just difficult to lock them down because they are out there in the market delivering such high value. On the flip side, it's also really an exciting part of ops because when I do get the time with them, 15, 20 minutes, they know exactly what's going on in the market. They know what I should be caring about, what needs to be measured, what doesn't need to be measured. And then also, what am I doing that works? Am I delivering enablement tools, sales training, recruiting training that actually helps, or is it just a waste of time? So it's kind of that two sides of the coin. On the one hand, very hard to lock them down because they are delivering product out to the market. But then on the other side, I get really good insight into what the market is demanding, what candidates are talking about, what our private equity clients want to see.
Yeah, so your stakeholders are kind of this mix of sales and delivery, right?
Yep.
They are essentially bringing in business and servicing that business as well. One of the things that came to mind as you were going through that, I was thinking about compensation and commissions, incentive payments. So in a typical world, if you're on the sales side, we'll go back to software, you have things like 10 to 15% variable comp based on what you sell. That means your OTE or on target earnings are going to be a split of say 50-50. Your base is this, your variable comp will be this, some tiering in your compensation or commission structure. Maybe you're doing spiffs to incentivize certain things from your sales team. I envision that kind of goes out the door in your sort of world. So maybe let's talk there. Compensation commissions at a services executive search firm like that. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's funny what you just mentioned. We deal with that all the time, placing our candidates, having to explain to them what these offer terms mean. At JM, it's largely variable comp for our partners, almost 100%. So it's a true model of what you sell is what you get, and also what you sell, you need to deliver on. So if I'm sitting in the seat of a partner, I go out and I sell a search engagement. We could say that I've originated that deal, I found that deal, I got that deal. I then have to figure out, is it a niche that I'm specialized in, or do I need to reach out to somebody else at my firm? They might help me deliver that. So the whole bucket of revenue that we bring in from each deal could be split any number of ways across our delivery folks and our sales folks. But again, it is for most of our senior people largely, I think almost 100% variable comp for these people. What they bring in and what they execute on is what they're getting taken home at the end of the year.
Yep. And like you said, it's one thing to get that engagement letter signed, but you have $0 coming in the door when that happens. Now you got to go out and deliver on that. I can imagine there's a lot of stakeholders involved there. There's a lot of moving parts as well. You mentioned these people are incredibly busy. Essentially, each partner is operating as a kind of not an independent entrepreneur, but very much, like you said, you get paid based on what you sell and deliver. It's your job to leverage the resources at the firm to deliver value to your clients. Let's talk about the alignment piece. We hear this all the time. If you're looking at software technology companies, we're talking about alignment or maybe lack of alignment from marketing to sales or sales to CS, right? It's like marketing and sales are always fighting over like marketing's not giving me enough leads, or like the leads that they are giving me are like poor quality, right? Marketing's like, hey, sales, you're not closing the stuff that I send you. CS is like, hey, sales is promising stuff that we can't actually deliver on, and now I'm here to clean up the mess. The list goes on, but typically the alignment comes from what doesn't exist between marketing, sales, and success, because that's a typical model to deliver value and ultimately drive revenue for your business. I imagine that looks different when you have partners or senior people doing the sales and delivery work, and then you've got resources available to them, especially when 100% of your compensation is based on what you sell and deliver. So what are some of those unique alignment challenges within a search firm like JM that you experience, and how are those different from what I just mentioned between marketing, sales, and CS?
So from an actual ops perspective, sitting in this business operations seat, these people who are delivering search, winning search, they're very successful individuals. They've been largely doing this for decades, most of them. We have to walk a fine line around delivering enablement, data, processes, without also changing how they do their job, because they've done it really well for so long. As a firm, we've grown well. There's a reason behind that. So on the one hand, it's my job and marketing's job and kind of our CS job. We have to understand why have they done well? What exactly is driving the behavior to bring in this tremendous amount of revenue that they're generating? And then I also have to understand, what is the market demanding we do? What does the market need to see from an executive search firm? And then on the last side of things, how do I not mess with anybody's day while also just making things easier for them? So that's a super unique challenge in that I can't get in the way of what's going on. I have to just be there to facilitate ease of delivery, ease of sale. Similarly, from a marketing perspective, a lot of our behavior is driven by what our partners need to see. What are they identifying as the market they'd like to go into? Maybe one person has been focused in the SaaS space for 5-6 years. They've identified an opportunity in fintech. How does marketing then adjust to that change in focus? It's largely a reactive operations seat. As we've grown, we know 7 practices engaged broadly across 7 industries. Each of those practices had their own way of doing things, even though as a business, we all use the same system. Last year, we took an approach to standardize. How do we actually document what's happening in our searches? How do we use our system in a uniform way so that if I'm working in practice A and I work with somebody in practice see, there's no questions on how we do things. So we got a large team of people together, business users and corporate stakeholders from marketing, from search, from RevOps, et cetera, to build a standard process so that now we have a one uniform way of doing things. Just facilitates cross-practice working. It makes me sell from one practice to another a lot easier. So this effort to standardize things, we need to be really careful not to overstep what our mission was. I haven't told anyone to do anything that they wouldn't do otherwise. It's just, how do you demonstrate that you've done that? And how do we trim the fat of, hey, you're doing something that's really non-value add, maybe try this instead. So it's that fine line of not telling them too much, but also giving them just enough so that we can present this standardized front.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm sure there's plenty of challenges along the way, but you mentioned KPIs and analytics. I'm a little curious, and actually systems as well. So, one, I guess I assume there's some sort of CRM, some tooling that you use. What are some of the main technologies on the systems side that are most useful and impactful for you in the search industry?
Yeah, so I think it's going to vary depending on which search firm you're talking to. All of us operate with some sort of applicant tracking system. If you're talking to TA professionals in technical staffing or internal recruiting, they might mention a Workday or Greenhouse. For the executive search world, it's a much smaller group of technologies. We use a product called Thrive, and it's truly just an applicant tracking system. We actually don't have a CRM. We do all of our lead tracking, account management through this applicant tracking system. We like to say if it's not in the system, if it's not in Thrive, it didn't happen. So it's where we track 90% of what we're doing. Outside of that, we do leverage a number of sales and search enablement tools. So we have an AI note taker that we leverage on all of our recruiting engagements. I talked about the time that these folks have. If we can save them 6 to 10 hours a week, great. That's a huge amount of time. So we did deploy an AI note taker in the last year. And over the last year, we've also started spinning up more robust data analytics, so visuals for folks to understand how their business is doing. Once we standardized how we deliver search, we were then able to start understanding what data can we get in the back end. So we've deployed a pretty big Power BI environment to start displaying average deal size, time to close, win-loss rates, starting to spin up some of that information that's feeding directly out of our applicant tracking system.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned a few that we track regularly, like win rates, average deal size, days to close, months to close. What are some of the standardized metrics and KPIs that you all look at as a search firm? And then more importantly, how are you then taking insights from those things and turning them into actions or outcomes for the different business units and stakeholders that you support?
Yeah, 100%. So transparently, we are still trying to figure out exactly what KPIs are most important. And so,
as we all are.
Right. On the search delivery front, really important to our clients is, number one, time to close. Our clients don't want to be sitting and waiting for a vacant seat to fill. We need to fill these things quickly. But then on the flip side, we can't be giving them bad candidates. We need to help them hire somebody who will be there. So we're also looking at a rolling 12-month, what we call stick rate. Does the candidate we give our client stay in seat for at least a year? That's a really critical KPI. On the one hand, did we give them a fast search? And on the other hand, did that person stay in seat? We also want to make sure that to get a fast close of engagement, we're putting candidates in front of our clients really quickly. So we also measure what we call time to present. We want to see a certain number of candidates in front of our clients in the first 3 weeks of a search. We found that if we do that, the odds are we'll close that search engagement relatively quickly. The quicker a client can see who we're talking to, the quicker they're able to make a decision. That's really on the search delivery. In terms of how we use that, there's a number of ways. Typically, our teams will have the partner who won the search, some sort of recruiter, search consultant that's working with them, and then we have about 40 research professionals internally to the firm. If a search is off the rails for any reason, your time to present is 30, 50, 60 days, it's largely an indicator that the researcher and the recruiter are not aligned somewhere in the search. The recruiter isn't giving enough information to the researcher on what they're hearing in the market, what the client wants to hear, or the researcher isn't necessarily hearing, here's how I've got to pivot where I'm looking for candidates. So on the search side, that's how we're starting to use that. With stick rate, this concept of keeping somebody in seat, a lot of how we're thinking about that measure is a lot of our candidates can become clients. They can sell us future
Yeah.
work. So we want all of our recruiters in touch with their candidates multiple times throughout the first year that we've placed them. So we're measuring, are you talking to these people at least 4 or 5 times a year? We found that as that number goes up, the odds of them leaving the firm goes way down. If we can offer ourselves as a trusted advisor to our placed candidate, we know there's a high chance that they're going to give us future business and an even higher chance that they will stay in the seat that we place them in. On the business development front, we do a lot around just time to close a deal. We don't like seeing open deals for 100, 200 days. We try to keep our cycle time down to 60 days. So if we start to see a qualified pipeline average days over 65, it's probably an opportunity for that person to go look in new areas. Are there new clients, new logos that you could be hunting? Instead of focusing on just these few deals that are really aged at this point, the work might not come in. Are there ways we can pivot how you're spending your time?
Yeah, I love that. And it's very clear that you're thinking about the value side of the equation, which whether you're delivering a search product, right, or a software product or whatever you want to call it, it's really a value exchange, right? And you're thinking about how you can best deliver value to your clients, but then also, like you said, build those relationships so that you can drive future pipeline, future engagements, and get that flywheel humming. And
Exactly.
so I have 2 more questions for you. One is RevOps related, one is not. So the first RevOps related one, do you have, and this goes back to the alignment piece, I think one of the big things that you need to be specifically really good at in your current role is the alignment of people and process and technology, and just making sure that teams are on the same page, or in your case, maybe it's individuals on the same page, and that you are leveraging best practices across all of these different business units and practices, but you're also not getting in people's ways that you mentioned. Do you have one particular piece of advice or story about how you have faced an alignment issue or challenge within your current role or experience, and then how you solve that and how that could help really any revenue operator out there, whether you're in SaaS software environment dealing with marketing, sales, or success, or maybe you're in professional services somewhere else, regardless of your role. If you're an operator, one piece of advice that you'd give them based on that learning or that story?
I like to think of myself as pretty good at getting broad buy-in across a team to march towards one objective. The way I've done that to a lot of success at JM is finding who are my champions, who are my stakeholders embedded in the business that can help me understand a problem better, solve that problem, and then champion that problem for their local department. We rolled out this AI note taker this past year. Initially, when we started talking about this concept, it's something I know we needed. It's just a way to get better, save time, provide coaching, training. There's a lot of value adds to doing recorded calls. Initially, there was a massive amount of friction from the business. I don't really want to do this. I can take notes. I've got a secretary. I'm fine. So our approach was, okay, great, I hear you. Let's just try something. We found one note taker. We gave it to a bunch of folks. They said, I don't like this. But we got the ball rolling. That opened the door for us to then find the AI note taker we actually ended up purchasing. And the way we found that is I had a list of 10, 12 options. I went out to the business, my 15 or so stakeholders who I know will use the product, and I asked them, what do you want to see? What do you need out there? Once I had those engaged people actively selecting a product, just made the conversation a lot easier where I'm not having to sell a tool or a product internally. I've got champions in the business who can demonstrate, here's how I'm using it, here's the value I'm adding. So that's where I think the best advice I have is it's very easy as an operator to go heads down, lock yourself in a room, be on your Excel sheets, be in your visuals. If you're not out in the business building buy-in, building stakeholder engagement, nothing you're building in the back end is ever going to come to any fruition.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think every operator has the opportunity to do what you just mentioned. If you think about a traditional setup of marketing, sales, and customer success, and use a new technology rollout, because that stuff happens all the time in software technology companies, is go out and find those champions, right? You mentioned they exist. So there's going to be at least one person on the sales or marketing team who's going to be like, yeah, I'm down for that. Find those people and do what you can to get them to help you with the buy-in aspect, but then at the same time, make sure you're listening to the things they need, the things the rest of the business is asking for. If you look at RevOps as your product, right, in your case that you're delivering to your users, which are your stakeholders, manage it like that. Get buy-in, deliver value, take feedback, and spend as much time with them. Like you said, not behind your spreadsheet or Salesforce instance, but get out there, have those conversations. That's the only way that you're going to be able to tie the systems and the process stuff to the people side, which at the end of the day, regardless of where AI is at, people are still going to be the ones running businesses and ultimately doing things. So that's critically important.
I think one anecdote I'll share, and I tell my directs to do this a lot, is to go for a walk. A lot of our company is based in King of Prussia. Some of the most valuable conversations stakeholders I found is getting up out of my seat, doing a lap around my building, walking into an office, and engaging somebody in a conversation. I give that advice to my directs all the time. Get out of your seat, talk to people, wander in, make small talk for a little, and then ask them a question, and then move on. It's a 15-minute process that adds exponential value to what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just thought of this because we were talking about the executive search and recruiting side of this business. This is more just a fun fact. It really has nothing to do with what we've talked about so far. But I interviewed this guy, Jeremy Donovan, who's a RevOps advisor at Insight Partners. He has done a lot of work on what makes certain revenue professionals successful, meaning like what backgrounds do people have that makes them successful in a particular role. He's done this for chief revenue officers, account executives, and SDRs. He's defined success. I'm specifically going to talk about the SDR piece here, and you'll know why this is relevant in a couple of seconds. So he used to be at SalesLoft, a sales engagement platform, and they did this big study where they looked at the backgrounds of all of these sales development reps that they've ever hired and who came out to be a successful SDR. Success was defined as at least 2+ years in the role. They looked at all these different backgrounds. SDRs are typically one of those roles where it can be your first job out of college or you're early on in your career. I asked them, what's the golden profile? What would be the best type of background that you could look for in a person to know they would be a successful SDR? And you know what he told me? People who came from recruiting agencies were the best SDRs that they've ever hired. That is a golden background. If you think about sales development reps who are not afraid of failure, you're not afraid to get on the phone, have someone yell at you, and immediately brush that off and move on to the next thing. I thought that might be an interesting anecdote.
I can absolutely see why there's so much failure as if you're a recruiter of got internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, you're selling to candidates on the job you're hiring for. Yeah, if you've got a 50% hit rate on your candidates to even answer your call, it's a great day. So I can absolutely see that.
Yeah. And then here's my last question for you. It's not RevOps related. I like to end episodes with this. If you've listened before, maybe you've heard me ask this, in which case maybe you should already kind of have an answer. Every year now, last year was our first year. This year we're hosting RevOpsAF. Last year it was in San Diego. This year it's in New Orleans. We're going to have 300 to 350 people there. I want you to imagine that we have 300 to 350 people in the RevOpsAF audience, and you are the opening keynote speaker. And we announce your name. You start walking up on stage. Everyone stands up. They're all cheering. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, Dan. So as you're walking up on stage, what would be the walk-up song that you would choose to play for your entry before you deliver the opening keynote at the conference?
That is a really good question. I've been listening to a lot of classical music right now. From Beethoven's 7, if you've seen the King's Speech, it's the music leading up to his big speech. I've always had a soft spot for that. I can't think of the exact movement, but if I had to go classical, that's probably it. If I had to go something a little bit more mainstream, I listen to a lot of music, so it's tough. My favorite band is Guster. Anything by them would be a privilege to have as a walk-up song. Yeah.
That's old school. Didn't they just have like a reunion tour too?
They sure did. I saw them twice. So
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. From classical music to Guster, those are both great answers. I've had people tell me The Sound of Music, Eminem, Smooth Operator, DJ Khaled. It is truly a wide range, but I can totally support some classical and some Guster as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, with that, Dan, thank you very much for dropping some knowledge on us today, talking about the intricacies of operations at a national executive search firm, and specifically alignment and all the things any operator can learn about how to best drive alignments. Thank you for being on the show, my friend. That's all I got for you, so I'll let you run.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode, everybody.
For more great content like this, join our community at RevOpsCoop.com and check out the links provided in the show notes.
Keep it RevOpsAF, y'all.